So hello, my name's Aakash. I'm a grade 10 student, and I'm here today with Miss Sunday Harrison, the leader and founder of Green Thumbs Growing Kids. And you guys are a nature and food literacy program that runs in schools around Toronto. So is there anything else you'd like to give like an introduction, or is there anything like that you'd like to ask me?
We manage 3 school gardens, and we have for many years. We kind of sometimes expand to a 4th or 5th, just for a season. But the 3 that we manage are pretty solid over a long period of time. And we host a lot of post-secondary students and also some high school co-op students. We also have, these are elementary school grounds.
Yeah.
So we run programs in regular time, not COVID, but regular time, we run programs for elementary age students during the school day connected to their curriculum. But we also run an after-school program called Urban Roots Youth for high school age youth who would come after school once a week to one of the sites. And so that program has been on hold through COVID, but it is another age group that we do like to serve. And then in the summer, we open up the programs for all ages. We try to run summer day camp visits for local day camp kids, because they're usually the same kids that go to those schools, right? And they're in the local day camp. So we do a garden visit, and then we do family drop-ins, and we do, little farmers market stalls and food giveaways and things like that in the summer to really make the summer a rich community benefit rather than a maintenance problem for the school. So
what got you interested or motivated to create this Green Thumbs Growing Kids? Did you ever did you think about it when you're a kid?
Not really. I thought about it more as a parent, and then I thought about it as more of an after-school program at first. So we started it as an after-school program for ages 6 to 12 in a local park. And then the kids that came to that program after school, they had the idea that they wanted to have a school garden. And I was like, how does that work? What do you do about summertime? And so then we did some research, and the kids were really keen. And then we found a group that wanted to come bring families to the garden through the summer. So we thought, okay, let's try that. And so we got into school gardens at that point and started running the summer programs as well as the instructional daytime programs. And at that point, we had to pretty much drop the after school because we couldn't have start at 9 a.m. and go right to 6 p.m., right? It's too long a day. So we kind of went in favor of the school day and the curriculum links and the science and whatnot. And then after a few years, we got interested in growing it back to an after school program, but for youth.
I see.
So kind of everything just kind of flowed, but it came from in my story, it came from wanting my own kids to have access to gardening and nature, because we lived in an apartment. We didn't have much land to work with. And I was lucky. I grew up with summer camp in the country and things like that. And so I wanted to give that experience to my own kids. And then I thought, well, there's so many kids in my neighborhood who don't have land and don't have gardens, and they would also appreciate it. And so the park that I lived close to was actually it's kind of like a model farm, and there were lots of kids coming all year round, school buses full of kids visiting this model farm. But I found that kids in my neighborhood didn't even know it was there, because there was kind of this, how there's kind of the cream in the inside of the donut. Well, kind of like that. And the kids around the neighborhood didn't really use that land or know what was there. So it was kind of also about equity and breaking down a barrier in the community between the lower income and the higher income families, and evening out the access to land and nature, so it's really as much about nature as about food, and also wanting to grow fresh food. I just wanted to garden so that I could have some fresh food and my kids could have fresh food. So, start a program, so that's where it started for me. I had a background in landscape architecture. I had actually gone to school for landscape architecture, a 2-year certificate program. So it's pretty low what do I want to say? It wasn't onerous. I did it part-time, and I was kind of running like a little gardening business. So I was getting familiar with the subject matter through the early 90s. Before that, I was in the printing industry. I was in trades. So I was looking for a change because I love to garden. So I was trying to figure out, well, can I make a job out of it?
Awesome.
So that's where it came from.
Well, this is like more relevant, like 2020, 2021. You said that you're doing a online / like virtual program. Do you think that it's like a good alternative to keep during? No?
I mean, I guess it is in theory, but my preference is hands-on. I think that it's more inclusive. It's to different types of learners. I think it's hard for kids, like it's hard for all of us to have so much screen time. I really prefer that we can come together outdoors, which is safer than indoors, and plant our gardens and learn from the land and on the land how to care for the land and ourselves. So for me, it's also mental health, like that. I think
that's a big thing now.
It is, and I think the outdoor opportunities should be maxed out. Like people should be getting outside and enjoying the fresh air and the nice weather. Even in winter, they should be getting outside and just, having some contact with the trees, the shrubs, the grasses, just that fresh air can mean a lot, Yeah,
I definitely agree with you. Like sometimes I see myself just going out for like walks and just looking at the nature, because for school, like for example, during the school year, it's online, and then I have to go do homework and that's online, and everything I want to do is online now. So like I find myself like before the pandemic, I barely like went outside. Normally just be like going to school outside and coming back home and like working. But now I find myself encouraging to go outside, like go on runs, go on walks, like, check out outdoors.
Yeah. And some places in the US, they really jumped right on the outdoor classroom idea, and they really invested in like benches and outdoor blackboards and whiteboards and different types of containers to keep the supplies in, and they really put a high priority in moving education outside. And I think that was really smart. I wish that our school boards were doing that. I don't see that they are. They've been a little bit more open to outdoor learning, but it's not a real investment, like in some of those other places. So
how has like working with children for like gardening and everything like improved you as a person? Like has your viewpoint changed of anything?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have enough self-awareness to answer what I was like before. But I think that being around kids is it gives you energy because they're so fresh, and you have to make it kind of straightforward, not dumb it down or be simple, but you have to take complex subject matter and make it accessible. So I think that my communication skills have improved over the years because of trying to relate to different age groups. That's what I know. I don't know if I'm a better person, but I think I have maybe more better skills in some areas, and maybe more patience, because you kind of have to have
you have to wait.
But I don't know if that's from parenting or from working with kids in my professional life. And I actually, to be honest, I haven't done the actual hands-on garden education for quite some time. Like I've been kind of in the office more, raising funds, helping to train the staff and things like that. So a little less of the frontline programs myself for some time. So I actually, when I get an opportunity to go and run a program with young people or with anybody really, I'm excited, because I don't get to do it as much as I used to.
Yeah, you actually like lead it into my next question. I was gonna ask you like, what are some obstacles, or if there are any obstacles or challenges that only you as a leader of the organization face? So
like I have to kind of like the way nonprofits are structured. The board of directors is actually my employer, and so I report to the board, and they evaluate my performance on a regular basis, and then I'm responsible for the staff, and the staff report to me, or they, there might be a hierarchy, when we get big enough, there's kind of like a couple more steps, but essentially I'm kind of in the middle, like of an hourglass shape, where I have to manage up and manage down, and I have to be sure that I'm doing what the board thinks I should be doing, and if not, I have to talk them into what what I think they should think that I should do. And I mean, I have to say they're very respectful, and because I'm the founder, I probably have a lot of latitude that a new executive director wouldn't necessarily have. So, that's another piece, is that they defer to me probably more than they would defer to a newer staff member. So that's one it's not really a challenge, but it is kind of a challenge to, because the board changes over. So I'm still here after 22 years, and the board has changed many times because there's term limits. So they can only serve 2 terms of 2 years each, then they're gone. And that's to prevent board members being in the role longer than they should be. It's a volunteer position, but sometimes people sit on boards and they kind of throw their weight around, and then there's no way to get rid of them. So that's why term limits are best practice in nonprofits.
I see.
But sometimes you extend them because they're really good, they're really engaged, and so the board votes to extend them another term. So you can do that. The board makes the rules. So that's that happens a fair amount, particularly the person in the role of the chair or the president. After 4 years, they're really solid, like they really know what's going on, and then you lose them and you have to bring someone else into that role. So that's what I mean about sort of managing up as well, like sort of like making sure that the board has the information they need to do their jobs, as well as making sure that the staff who report to me have the information they need to do their jobs. So that's the challenge. And mostly I'm pretty good, but sometimes my staff are like, but you didn't tell us the da. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I missed that piece. So I'm always learning and always, growing as a leader as well, and trying to improve. And then the other challenge is funding, because most of the funds that are available for what we do are 1 year in duration. So they'll be like, yes, we love what you do. Here's some money for 1 year.
And then
we go, okay, great. And then we get through that year and we're
next
like,
year.
Oh, now what? So it's hard to, the nonprofit sector, it runs on these short-term wage subsidies and grants, and it's hard on staff, it's hard on fundraising, it's hard on the board. On the other hand, it gives students an opportunity for short-term contracts and a 1 year contract to gain experience, and then they can see if they like it. So it's not all bad, but I would like to have enough staff that stay for more than a year, that I'm really utilizing the knowledge and building on the knowledge that they bring, right? Rather than having to train a new staff. So that's the other challenge.
Okay. I mean, it seems you're leading into all my questions, because my next question was, is there anything, like any advice or any tips, like you as an adult and as like a leader, or or a worker as like a nonprofit organization would say to like high school students like working?
Yeah, I mean, you guys it's a tricky generation, because, you're faced with climate change. You're faced with like a world that is changing very rapidly and that needs to change very rapidly. And, it's because the generations before you, my generation, did not do enough and has not prevented climate change from happening. So I think that's a huge challenge. And I'm really impressed by young people who want to embrace that and find a way to, kind of keep their spirits up and bring something to the table. You should be able to be and do anything that you want. But right now, it just feels like some of the occupations are just, they're not going to last, so you have to be sure, but you don't have to be sure, because most people change jobs a bunch of times in their lives. Like I started off a typesetter in a print shop, and now I run children's garden programs. So, you can start where you feel there's an opening, and you learn, and then you can do something else. You don't have to do the same thing your whole life. And so I guess my advice is to follow your passion and to, think about how you can keep your spirits up. It's a hard time.
It's definitely a hard time to keep spirits up. Like mental health is I think many opportunities to watch out for mental health, or people are starting to take care of others, just to be aware.
Yeah, for sure. And studying can be hard on your mental health. The schooling can be hard. So, and don't think there's no failure in failure. If you don't graduate, or you don't get the degree at the certain time that somebody thinks you should, well, you know what? You're going to move on.
Yeah, because time's going to pass either way.
You don't need to live up to anybody's expectations. You just need to follow your own dreams and your own passion, and bring your whole self to what you do. There's no point if you just go out and just do something for the money. You're not going to be happy. You're just going to be okay, I can pay my bills, right? So you might have to sacrifice a bit to do what you really want, but then it would be worth it, because you'll be happy.
Yeah.
So money can't buy happiness. It can pay the rent though. So, you don't have to pay rent yet, I'm guessing.
No,
but when you do, you will, there's some pretty harsh gig economy stuff going on right now.
Everything's changing.
It's not easy. It's not easy. But I think that environmental careers have a lot of promise.
Technology as well is growing.
And tech. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Even combining them, if you're interested in environmental stuff and also technology, there's so many places to go with that.
Yeah.
So, I would, encourage you to just look around, and you got a couple years before you have to really pick and choose, or I guess a year. You start picking and choosing.
Yeah, in grade 11, 12.
Next year.
Yeah.
So, and there's great programs in Waterloo, but you might want to get away. You might want to try something new and go live somewhere else. So, you should just look deep in yourself and think about what you really want and things you want to try. And, it may not always, be what you thought it was going to be, but then now
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to try, because that's, failure is it's not a lack of success. Failure will bring you to more success. So don't be afraid.
Well, one of the things for grade 10, I just picked random courses that I thought I would have an interest in. For woodworking, for example, I would have never thought that I liked working with wood and different things.
Nice.
And even if I didn't like it, just knowing that I didn't like it at least gives me a further push into finding something else that I may enjoy.
Right. And maybe there's something else hands-on that's different than woodworking that sort of makes you as happy as the parts that you liked, something about the material or something about the tools, or one of the reasons I really like gardening is that you get to do a bunch of different stuff. You get to cook, but you also get to build stuff. You get to swing a hammer, you get to dig a hole. It's very physical, but it's also bring it into the kitchen and make something special. So, it's because of variety. I'm kind of the kind of person, I get bored easily. So I always liked gardening for that sort of, always learning.
Yeah.
And then the variety of tasks involved keeps me stimulated. So even if you don't do it as a profession, having it in your life.
Hobby. Yeah.
As a hobby is ideal, and it's probably the most popular hobby.
Even my mom does some gardening at the back. Nice. When she gets a chance here and there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think you answered. I think there's one final question that I have for you. Does Green Thumb Growing Kids have any future plans or anything that someone should expect?
We've started doing more climate change education.
Yeah.
So we are starting to work with younger children to talk about climate change. And it's a bit daunting because of the mental health issues. And also, we don't want to be too far ahead of the curriculum. And the curriculum actually sucks on climate change. It's not very good. So it doesn't, like, you don't get it till grade 10, right?
We don't.
Like, you didn't
we
even
don't.
have it, which is awfully late. Like, when you think about it, you could have learned a lot more.
I think
right?
I learned more about like climate change and everything in like grade 4 and grade 5 than I have in like grade 9 and 10, where you can use those like
right.
bigger terms with science and everything else.
Yeah. So we're trying to bring it into the garden-based programming in a positive, solutions-oriented way, because soil itself sequesters carbon, and plants in soil can draw carbon out of the atmosphere. So we're trying to teach about healthy biology in your soils. So that you're drawing down that excess carbon. And there's no need to use herbicides, pesticides, any kind of chemicals on the land. And those chemicals are hurting the microorganisms that actually sequester the carbon. So we're trying to teach like positive solutions that anybody can use, even if they just have a balcony garden. There's carbon that can be brought down right in your balcony.
I guess like the only I think the time we touched like carbon and like nitrogen and like soil ecology and everything was like grade 9 for like one subject, and then we never touched it again in grade 10.
Really?
Yeah, that's it.
And there could be so much more, like,
a bunch
there
more.
Could be so much more just practical, and like dig up your school ground and like turn it into an outdoor classroom,
I used to go to like school for grade 9. We had like a green room like on the second floor with a bunch of plants and everything, and we got to like check it out, which was really fun.
That's neat. Yeah, green roof is really smart because it's helping with your heating and cooling of the building. It's helping with your stormwater management. And it's also, I don't think it's sequestering a lot of carbon, but it is adding oxygen and reducing the urban heat island effect. So it's a good building method. It's good to have on your new buildings. So there's lots of opportunities really in soils, in, all kinds of stuff, like to be part of positive solutions. So we want to bring that in. We also want to bring in more Indigenous content and decolonization, and talk about decolonization as part of our programs. So so those are the kind of two program areas that we're trying to build more content and more lessons and more traction with the elementary age, and then also continuing our after school program with the youth your age, but also with the youth your age, we get more into food security, food justice, food systems, analyzing that, and kind of learning about politics that way, or the more political side of food. So that's fun too. I mean, that sort of depends on the group having that interest. That's another growth area. We're not really looking at expanding to new schools unless we could really generate the cash, because it's just we don't get any money from our school board.
Okay.
So all of our programs are run off of grants and donations. And I know that the Waterloo Region School Food Garden Project is a 3-year Trillium grant, and that they're going to have to be looking at what happens after 3 years. Right? So same situation, where unless it's funded under the education system, which would be, that's my blue sky, is that the education system would start to include food literacy and garden-based learning.
I think I agree with you on that. Like, I think we need to have like a lot more on like gardening and like nature, and also indigenous like affairs and like indigenous learnings, because of like the recent events. I hope that they like look into incorporating it, because for now there's like only one course, I think, that's not even mandatory, that teaches about indigenous learning and like religion.
Wow. Yeah, there was supposed to be a rewrite of the curriculum before the last government came in, the Conservatives, and they cut the Indigenous piece out. They were the Indigenous people all over the province were ready. They were ready to meet and go over the curriculum and add new content, and the province killed it. So yeah, it's a big gap. Having said that, they've also introduced a bill that might help, called Food Literacy Act, and they would require students to have a credit in food literacy to graduate. So it could help. I don't know how much they'd mess it up, and they probably may make the teachers mad, because teachers would be like, what? You want us to do another thing? You know, if they did it right, it would be good. It would actually help. So I don't know. We'll see.
That's all the questions I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, what's your scene like? Do you feel like you have friends who want to do similar things as you in like environmental learning, or do you feel like you're like the only one in your crowd that's interested in this stuff?
I think out of like my whole friend group, I think I'm the only one that has like a lookout for like biology or like ecology and other stuff like that, because everybody else, like for high school, definitely they only took chemistry and physics. They're more like on the looking for like the technology and engineering side. So I think out of the bunch, I'm the only one really that's like looking into woodworking or looking into biology. But
interesting.
You never know till now, because I still have no idea of what I like want to do, and I don't
sure,
think,
and you don't have to.
Yeah,
you don't have to, but that's interesting. Like my son, who's a little older than you, he's 25. He got into rocket science, engineering, right? I always laugh. I'm a gardener who raised a rocket scientist, right? That's his passion. So good on him, you know. And to each their own, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, pleasure speaking with you, Aakash.
Yeah, pleasure.
Best of luck.
You too. And I guess have a good day.
Yeah, you as well. Take care.